And this came about because I've got my new book coming out in about 3 weeks. We were talking with the publishers about who the real audience is, and I said entrepreneurs. And they said, well, how do you define that? So let me go through what I believe an entrepreneur is. And it's not just someone who takes big risks or someone who, goes out and starts a business. It's actually something that goes a little bit deeper than that. So let me first of all show you where I am. I've kind of done a bit of traveling since my last video when I was in New York. And today we actually are on a rooftop in Paris. So if you have a look over here, you will see that we are in France. There is a beautiful view. You can see over there is the Eiffel Tower as well. And it's interesting because the word entrepreneur actually comes from French. The verb entreprendre, which means to undertake or to go on a journey of promise, is where the word entrepreneur comes from. In fact, the past participle entrepris is where we get the word enterprise, which is basically the vehicle for an undertaking, like a business. And if you take that idea, which is going on a journey of promise, to set a commitment and then go somewhere to get there, that's a little bit, like thinking about a quest. If you were to think about your biggest questions, because your questions determine the size of your quest. So if your question is, what am I going to have for lunch today? So that's the size of your quest. If your question is, how do I make this big impact towards this particular community? Or how do I go out and change the world? That becomes a bigger question, which requires a bigger quest. So if you find yourself in a situation where you're asking those bigger questions and you say, I'm actually going to do something about that, I'm actually going to go out there and actually make a difference, that means that you are an entrepreneur, in my view, because you're actually on a journey. And then there's the second thing, which is the frequency of how you're going to go about creating your success. And what I mean by that is a lot of people have a 1-year frequency, which is the student or employee mindset. It's like if once a year you get a pay raise, if once a year you improve, go up 1 grade in your class, then that's about what you'd expect. Whereas entrepreneurs have a 3-month frequency, which means they have 4 of those in 1 year. There's not a single a multinational company, a company listed in the stock market that doesn't have quarterly reporting. So you actually bring your frequency down as an entrepreneur, because if you've got to achieve things in 3 months, if your life is going to change in 3 months, well then immediately you have to start taking action in a way you don't if you have a 1-year goal. And your vision is no longer a 1-year vision. Your vision is now a 10-year, a 20-year vision. Is something which actually extends as well. So your vision gets further, your frequency actually gets shorter, and as a result of that, just like the rhythms when you're playing music, you end up being able to kind of like create far more of a difference in a far shorter time. And that brings me to the third of the key things that I look at when I'm thinking about whether someone's ready or is already an entrepreneur. And that is whether or not you are creating a dent in the universe. I mean, that's something which Steve Jobs talked about. Identity is like, are you unique in a very specific way compared to others around you? Not just a speaker, but the speaker in a particular area. Not just a book or a business, but the specific book which is the leader in a particular area, or the specific business which is the leader in a particular market. When you start thinking about the word authority, like what are you an authority in? The moment you choose to say, I will be an authority in something, then you stop being in a situation where you're passing the authority on to others, which is really what we can complain about. We give the authority to the weather, we complain about the weather. We give the authority to the government, we complain about the government. But the moment you say, I'm going to be the author of my story, and the word author is in authority, you end up creating that story for yourself. And if you go, yeah, I'm actually doing that. I actually got a very specific story, which is mine, only mine. I'm the authority in that story. I'm the author writing that story. Because if you're not writing your story, then you're in someone else's. And if you actually start from that place to say that's absolutely where I'm at, you don't need to be out there being the risk taker, being like a Richard Branson going out to trying to change the world. You might be, but you also might be someone who's just making a small difference in your particular area. You might be in a job right now, but you can still be an entrepreneur because number 1, you're on a journey of promise. Number 2, you have a frequency where every 3 months you're operating just like those big multinationals in terms of getting to a certain promise and then fulfilling on it. And then others actually come along your journey with you. And number 3, you're an authority. You're someone who actually steps up and is the author of your story. Well, I have my story coming out, my book. I really hope you get a copy of it. If you're interested, you'll find the links here. I look forward to hearing about your story and being a part of your journey as well. Until the next video, this is goodbye from Paris.